You're watching Let the Quran Speak. What's the significance of the number 7 and why are 7 repetitions mentioned in the Quran? We're going to explore that now as part of our Misunderstood Quranic Verses series. Dr. Shabir, let's talk about the number 7. And it appears in this verse, verse 87 from chapter 15. And it goes like this, or at least this is a translation. And assuredly, we have vouchsafed unto thee 7 of the repetitions and the mighty Quran. And this is the Abdul Majid Daryabadi translation, Dr. Shabir. So what is this verse referring to when it talks about 7 of the repetitions?
Yeah, it's interesting. And the classical commentaries, let me start with the Arabic as is usual. So it says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَاكَ سَبْعًا مِنَ الْمَثَانِي وَالْقُرْآنَ الْعَظِيمِ. We have given you, so I would say 7 from among the repeated things, from among the repetitions. We have given you 7 from among the repetitions and the Grand Quran. The Grand Quran, we know, Quran, the Great Quran, Al-Quran Al-Azim, right? But what is this 7? And it seems to be distinct from the Quran. But classical Muslim commentators on the Quran generally gravitated to saying that among many suggestions that are offered, the Surah Al-Fatihah, that is the opening chapter of the Quran, which, by the way, we should have another segment dealing with this. It mirrors, and only recently did I come to realize this, it mirrors what is called the Lord's Prayer in the New Testament, where Jesus taught his followers to pray like this: Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, and so on. The distinction is that in the Quran, God is referred to as Rabbul Alameen, the Lord of the worlds, whereas in the Lord's Prayer, he is referred to as Father. But leaving that aside, we can deal with that another time. So for the moment, this Surah Al-Fatihah, the opening chapter of the Quran, is one of 114 chapters. And it consists of only 7 verses. So the commentators say, it must be the Surah Al-Fatihah because this consists of 7 verses. And what does it say oft-repeated? Because Surah Al-Fatihah is repeated by Muslims a lot. We say this as an opening prayer on many special occasions. We want to pray for the dead. People start with reciting this surah. We want to pray for guidance. We recite this surah. In our daily prayers, we recite this surah plus another surah in every rakat of the every loud recited rakat of the prayers. And even in our private devotions, each rakat needs the Surah Al-Fatihah for it to be valid. So it's often repeated. And it is 7. So problem solved. But and they even have a hadith that supports this, that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that this is the Sab al-Mathani that he taught a certain companion.
Yes.
But what is evident here is that after the Quran, is preserved in writing, people are studying it, they're thinking about it. The Prophet, peace be upon him, is no longer around, so you can ask him directly. And people are coming up with various suggestions, and some of these suggestions are linked back to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, as people start to remember that he said something like this. But if the Prophet, peace be upon him, had made it very clear from the start, it's hardly likely that the Muslim commentators would still be puzzled over it. And it remains a puzzle. But what is interesting is that the number 7 in the Quran seems to be highlighted for its own right, as a number of importance. And we know that in religious history, 7 has had great significance. In the Bible, for example, a lot of things turn out to be in 7s. In the book of Revelation, the last book of the Bible, there are 7 spirits before God's throne. And this is only one example of the many things that turn out to be 7s or multiples of 7. Now, coming to the Quran, and the Surah Al-Fatihah actually, consists of 7 verses, but one can go more deeply into the Quran and see that 7 plays out in many different ways. Now, there are 28 letters of the Arabic alphabet, and this is in contrast, an alphabet can have any number of letters. The English alphabet has 26, the Greek alphabet has 24, the Hebrew alphabet has 22 letters. So Arabic has 28, and it so happens that 28 is a product of 7. It is 7 times 4. If we look at the mentions of 7 in the Quran, the 3-letter root is Sin, Ba, and Ain. So this three-letter root occurs 28 times throughout the Quran. So again, it's the 7 times 4. There are, at the beginning of some chapters of the Quran, what we called al-huruf al-muqatta, the disjointed letters. They don't indicate any words. They're just like alphabets, like acronyms, and nobody knows what exactly they mean. What is interesting is that there are 14 different patterns that are found among these various surahs that have these disjointed letters, and which is a product of 7. It's 7 times 2. And if one asks, well, how many letters of the Arabic alphabet are used in constructing these patterns? There are 14 letters of the Arabic alphabet, which is, again, 7 times 2. Now, if we look at where 7 is mentioned in the Quran, that too is interesting. We said that there are 28 mentions of 7. The first mention is in Surah Al-Baqarah, the 2nd chapter of the Quran. The last mention is in the 78th chapter of the Quran, which is Surah Naba. So if you think about this block of chapters from 2 to 78, it's really 78 minus 1, so it's 77. And 77 is a product of 7. It is 7 times 11. Now, if you look at the specific verses where these the first and last mention of 7 is found. So in Surah Al-Baqarah, it is in the 29th verse. And in Surah Naba, it's in the 12th verse. Now, at first glance, there seems to be no correlation between 28 and 12, 29 and 12. But this surah, in this surah, it is in the 29th verse. In that surah, it's in the 12th verse. Until you realize that Surah Naba, the 78th chapter, in which the number 7 occurs in the 12th verse, has a total of 40 verses, which means that after the mention of 7, there's another 28 verses following, which is the 7 times 4 that we've been talking about, the 28 letters of the Arabic alphabet. Now go back to Surah Al-Baqarah. The first mention of 7 is there in the 29th verse, as you mentioned. So if you ask how many verses came before it, it is 28 verses in that surah, which is 7 times 4. And 28, as we know, is the number of letters in the Arabic alphabet. So this would mean not only is 7 so interwoven within the fabric of the Quran in a way that it's hard to imagine that any human being planned this, especially when the Quran was revealed and recited orally. How did anyone, compose all of this in their minds and give the verse numbers? Because verse numbers actually were put in much later. They trained reciters of the Quran, knew where to stop, and based on the way in which sentences were delineated and the stops were known to the reciters, eventually the verse numbers were written into the written copies long after the death of our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. So how did all of these numbers play out in terms of specific locations where the number is going to be mentioned, the chapter numbers, the sequence of chapters, the number of the verse itself, and even down to the number of letters in the Arabic alphabet, which would mean that God was even preparing the Arabic alphabet to receive this Quran. So this is deep. And when we reflect back on the verse, it says, وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَاكَ سَبْعًا مِنَ الْمَثَانِ وَالْقُرْآنَ الْعَظِيمِ. We have given you 7 from among the oft-repeated things and the Grand Quran. We can see a very important number here in the Quran that is highlighted and on closer inspection is interwoven into the fabric of the Quranic discourse.
Very fascinating. Thank you for sharing that, Shabir.
You're welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Muslim Media Hub, the new home of Let the Quran Speak.
Here we spread positivity and good. We help people experience the beauty of Islam and help them appreciate and understand Muslims.
This beautiful building we purchased at cost $2.3 million.
Yeah, we've already raised a third of that money, and with your help, inshallah, we can pay off the rest.
So we're looking for people who can give $1,000 each. If you can be part of the select group, that's amazing.
Otherwise, just please give whatever you can. Every dollar counts.
It's our collective responsibility to share the message of Islam with our fellow human beings. Please help us continue this good work.
It's a sadaqah jariyah, something that will continue to be a benefit to the Muslim community long after Safiya and I are gone.
Please support our work at muslimmediahub.com.
Your support is zakat eligible and tax deductible.
May Allah bless you and your loved ones today and always. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.